on Cooking Wild with Kels. I'm originally from the channel Mountain Life with David and Kelsey. If you haven't already checked out the channel, go ahead and check it out. Today we are making homemade deer heart pot pies. There's one other cooking video on that page, so if you haven't already, check it out. And hopefully you guys like the channel. So we'll get cooking. Okay. So my ingredients today for our homemade pot pie, I'm going to start off with the crust and what you'll need to make the crust. We have our 2.5 cups of flour. We have our teaspoon of salt. And we have our 2/3 of shortening. Now I am doing a double batch, so these are not obviously the size that they will be for you guys. And then you guys will need about a 1/2 cup of water. This is to make a top layer for your pie and a bottom layer of crust. For your fillings, you will need bouillon cubes, or if you prefer to use stock to make your water taste good when you put it in. And then you'll need your vegetables, whatever vegetables you would like to use. Mine is just a mixed vegetable and potatoes, and then whatever kind of meat you guys will use. So now for your filling, you're going to need, I used 15-ounce cans of mixed vegetables. I used 4 of those, so 4 15-ounce cans of mixed vegetables. I'm using whitetail deer heart today. You can use whatever kind of meat you would like to put into it. Chicken, roast, whatever you'd like to put into it. And then I'm also using potatoes for today. I am going to be using bouillon cubes to cook my potatoes in, just to add some extra flavor to your potatoes and other vegetables. You can use stock or stock broth or whatever you would like to use. I prefer to use the bouillon cubes because I have to boil the potatoes anyways. So that is your ingredients for today. So today I am making a double batch, so we will have 2 different ways that we're going to cook it. One is in your normal pie crust pan, you know, what you would cook a normal pie in. And the other is going to be our large cast iron. One of these pies will be for our family for dinner tonight, and the other will be for our friend Richie. Happy birthday, Richie. Everybody wish him a happy birthday in the comments. So let's get cooking. Now I know that was a lot of ingredients to take in, so they will be listed down below. So first we're going to start off with our homemade pie crust. Like I said, this is for 2 separate pies, so there is more than what I have here. And I forgot to mention, this extra little bin is flour for my hands and for the table. While you are doing that, pre-cut your meat and your potatoes. I can't stress to you enough, especially if you like to soak the starch out. That's what I'm doing right now. And also, preheat your oven to 375. That is what we will be cooking the pies on today. So go ahead and preheat your oven, as well as chop up your ingredients and soak them if they need to be soaked or cleaned. So we got our big mixing bowl today. We're going to start out by putting our flour in there. Okay. And then you're going to add your salt. You'll take your whisk and whisk that through. That way it mixes and incorporates with your flour and distributes evenly. Next step is going to be adding your butter and cutting it into your pie crust or your flour. So this will make sure that you want about pea-sized pieces, and I will show you at the end. But all you're going to do is you're going to take your fingers, and remind you, I let this butter sit out to where it got room temperature, so it's easy to squish between my fingers. Some people like to use a fork, or they have tools for cutting butter into your flour or other ingredients into your flour. I prefer to use my hands just because it just gives me something to do, and it's a lot easier to work with your hands sometimes. So I'm going to get this incorporated, and I will show you. Like I said, you're just picking it up and pinching it into your flour. So I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so now that we have that incorporated, and you want it to be about pea size or less in there, you'll see there's some bigger chunks of butter or not even visual chunks of butter in there. That is A-okay. So now we're going to start adding in our water to make it into our dough. I like to create a little well in the middle and then just start adding a little bit at a time, because you can always add more water. You cannot take it away. So make sure that as you add it, just incorporate it. And if you need more or less, that is perfectly okay on water. There is no set limit or set short amount that you use. It's whatever you need for your dough to come out with a nice dough consistency. And you don't want it to be too watery in your hands, nor not enough water to where it's breaking and cracking. You want it to have that nice stretchy consistency when you need it. So how you will know if your dough is getting there in consistency that you want is it'll actually start to peel like the dough that you have off your hand from kneading it together off your hand. It'll peel it off of there into the pile, and as well as you can take it around the bowl and just pull it around and it'll pick up the pieces on the side of the bowl. I like to lay some flour down and knead it while it's, you know, just been made, and then put it in the fridge, because you really want to knead it together almost like a roll dough to get it to fluff really nicely. I just like to incorporate it really well and make sure it's incorporated before I put it in the fridge. So I'm going to get this kneaded a little bit, and then we'll come back to starting our filling. Now, another thing that you want to make sure you do is you want to do this before you start your filling. That way it can sit in the fridge for at least 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how long it takes you to prepare your filling. But it just helps it become firm so you're not ripping it and tearing it when you're stretching it into your pie pans.
Come on, let's get a smile, Kels. Come on, big smile.
Alright, so now we're going to start on our filling. We're going to start by cooking our potatoes, so I'm going to strain those off and rinse them and then get them in some fresh water and start those. And then I'm going to season and cook my meat. This is a whitetail that David shot in his season. It was the last couple days of the season. We needed another deer just to make sure we make it until next season's deer hunt and stuff, and even till salmon season. So David was fortunate to get this nice buck. We will add some pictures of that. It was a great hunt. So this is a great recipe if you're looking to add a variety of meat to your, you know, your plate or your table. It's a great way to incorporate. A lot of people leave the heart and other pieces that are a little bit more undesirable to eat, like rather than a steak. So they'll leave those with the gut pile. This is a great way, especially if your kids aren't that fond of wild game meat or whatever. It's a very healthy meat, and it has the quality and taste similar to a steak. So this is a great way to incorporate it. And I'm just telling you, if you don't tell somebody who doesn't like wild game meat that this is not wild, if you tell them it's not wild game, I guarantee you they're not going to notice a difference. It's a great lean quality meat. And so that's why when I cook it, I am going to add some vegetable oil. You can add whatever kind of oil you desire, but you are going to want a little bit extra to help keep it moist, because it will dry out just because of how, you know, just lean of a meat it is. Today I'm going to be seasoning it with some regular, just fine ground pepper, salt, of course. I'm going to do a little bit of garlic powder. And my special ingredient today, it's by Spiceology. It is our Black Magic, the Cajun blackening mix. And I'm really excited. This adds a pop of taste, because the rest of your stuff is going to be a little bit bland unless you would rather add some more spices to it. But the meat is a great way to add a nice spice to it, while also having the dialing down tastes of the potatoes and the, you know, gravy that you're making into this. So we are going to get started. I'm going to rinse these potatoes foremost, and I like to put them in a strainer. Look at all of them out here. I like to put them in a strainer and then just run some water over it, just to make sure you get that starchy flavor off of it. It just helps. Some people don't like the taste of that. Just let that strip for a minute. Kind of shake them. Put them back in our pot. And then we're going to add our water to this so we can start it. While that's filling up with water, I am going to turn this to high so we can start the boiling process. Now with your potatoes, unlike fried potatoes or whatever, you are going to want these to get a little bit of a mushy texture. So it would be like a lumpy mashed potato effect, just so that it does help to thicken your water and stuff naturally, rather than having to add a bunch of flavorless flour. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt to that to try and get it to boil faster. I have had my cast iron pan on low to let it warm up. I forgot to add this in on my last part. I am going to add onion. We're big onion fanatics in here, so we are going to add our onion to our potatoes. So we're going to season this real quick. You guys. And obviously, season this to your liking. If your family, our family's a big pepper family, so I'm going to add a little bit extra pepper. And the awesome part about these pot pies is you can make different varieties too. I've made a taco pot pie. So you just do taco meat, beans, and all your things that you would find in a taco, and then add your like shredded lettuce on top, and it's like a taco, you know, it's a taco pot pie. And so, and you can also do, I want to try a mac and cheese one, mac and cheese and ham, and just other varieties that you can do to this. So it makes dinner night a lot of fun. Originally how I came across this was with pork chops. We had pork chops, and there's only so much you can do with pork chops, so I wanted to change it up. So I cooked up my pork chops and added them in, changed the whole game. Kids loved it, and it used up some vital meat that, you know, you can't waste this stuff. So now that I've seasoned my meat, I'm going to add a little, I'm just using plain vegetable oil. Like I said, use whatever you would like to oil it and add some, so it doesn't get stuck to the pan. So now I'm just going to move this around my cast iron. I have wooden today. I guess I don't need that to put this in. And then we're just going to add that in there. Man, listen to that sizzle. It always smells so good when it's cooking too. You can smell it already. Okay, so we're going to let that cook. And now I'm going to chop up my onion so I can add it to my potatoes. Or I could add it in with my meat, either way. I just think the potatoes, because everything's got to go into this pot anyway, so adding it to the potatoes is not going to be that big of a deal. But again, using the undesirable chunk, not everybody claims they're undesirable, but they're still just as good. And sometimes the heart and the liver and stuff has the most amount of nutrients and everything else. So definitely use those when you can, and it's a great source of protein. Alright, I'm going to add this into my potatoes. And then we're going to let everything cook for a bit. Now, while I'm letting my potatoes cook, I almost forgot to add an important part. I just threw them in here with all my ingredients. You do not have to refrigerate bouillon cubes. You can add bouillon cubes. You can use vegetable, beef ones, whatever flavor you'd like. And I just like to add them to the water while it's boiling or before it boils. That way you have a little bit extra flavor in your potatoes. You can use vegetable stock or any other type of stock. We're not professionals by any means, so I'm sorry my words got jumbled, but it threw me off that I put the bouillon cubes in the fridge. Don't let the hair color fool you. I do have some moments, so we're gonna let this cook up, and that's the fun part about this channel. We're not professionals. I don't claim to be. Maybe I'll get better as time goes on, but for right now, we're just winging it. So now that your potatoes get to a softer consistency and your bouillon cubes or whatever has infused with the potatoes, you are free to add in your mixed vegetables or whatever vegetables you would like to add. Like I said, it's very easy to get the 15-ounce cans of mixed vegetables, or I've even bought the frozen vegetables. Frozen vegetables work great, and they're a lot, they're cheap for a lot of that you get out of them. So it's a great way to make a pot pie on a budget too, if you're trying to be budget friendly. So we're gonna mix this in and let this cook for a while longer, and then we're gonna add our meat. Alright, so we added in our mixed vegetables. Now we're gonna add in our meat chunks. Just be gentle that you don't get any splashing motions. And your pot will be pretty full if you do 2 pies. If you're afraid of overspill or whatever, obviously grab another. And like I said, unless you're not a fan of a little bit extra grease, add in that grease. It'll just add flavor to it and make it that much more enjoyable. And blend it around. It's looking delicious. Our next step will be adding a little bit of flour at a time to get a thicker consistency so that it would remind you of a gravy consistency. flour in at a time. I just try and sprinkle it across the top, that way it doesn't clump up as much. And then take a whisk and just put it right there on the surface and try and mix it in as best you can. And a reminder as well that you can also add seasonings, whatever you would like. I added a little bit of thyme, a little bit of basil, you know, whatever you'd like to add. I mean, you can add that right now or before, whatever you'd prefer, but you just want to mix around this flour in here. And if you have a little bit too much liquid in it and it is spilling over the side, I did have to take some out. Just take a cup and, you know, dunk it down and drain some of that juice out. That way you just have a little bit more room to work with your whisk. So, I'm going to keep adding flour and whisking it around and getting it to a thick consistency. Then I'll show you the thick consistency and we'll start putting our pies together. So now that you start to see a thicker consistency coming in after adding that flour, you're going to want to turn this down on low so it can just simmer and incorporate even better together. Comment down below what some of your favorite seasonings are. I forgot to mention that. I'd like to know. I mean, I kind of feel like everybody uses the same things, but maybe somebody out there has something good that I would like to try in this. So we're going to let this simmer for a minute and then we get right back to you. So while we're letting that simmer, I'm going to start my process for my butter wash for my pies. I have about 1/4 cup of a butter stick left, so I'm going to use that. I just do it in the microwave. I know people like to use their stove or whatever you have available, so I put that in a cup. Microwavable, safe cup. I know a lot of people think that. You know, don't think about that necessarily. Make sure it's microwavable safe, that way you're not exploding your microwave. I like to add a little bit of sea salt just for some extra texture on top. I will probably sprinkle a little bit more on top of the pie just to give it a little bit of, so I just add a little bit, a couple shakes worth. And then I'm going to add some garlic and herb Mrs. Dash. We love to use Mrs. Dash because it is actually, you know, good seasoning and a lot of people like it, so I'm going to use a little bit of that in there just to give our butter some taste. And I'm going to throw that in the microwave. I do 30-second intervals until it is fully melted. And then I'm going to take my sauce batter stick. Brush. Our rubber brush here that we used to put on top of our pies. We're going to put that and we're just going to stir it as it goes. That way it's ready to roll.
The director needs another drink.
I didn't know. I haven't used it in a while.
I love you.
I love you too. So I'm going to show you the consistency for your pie filling that you want. I don't know if you guys can hear me over that. Okay, it stopped. So anyways, you want it to be about, it would be almost remind you of a gravy consistency. That way it thickens up when it's in the oven as well, when it's inside your pie crust, and it sets better. If you have runny, it's not going to set up when you leave it to sit. So that is the consistency you want. We're going to get started on getting our pie crust ready to roll, and we're also going to make sure our butter's getting done as we go. Like I said before, mix it. This is after 30 seconds. I don't know if you guys can see down in there without me spilling it. Probably not, huh? Well, anyways, it's a little bit runny and there's still a little bit of butter, so I like to take this and I like to just whisk it around to make sure that we're working through the butter. I'm going to get a little bowl over here so I'm not making a huge mess. For once. I'm going to put my brush in the bowl. Sorry about the mishap there. This is the real edition of Cooking With Me. There's going to be names and thingy-bobbers thrown out everywhere because I'm not sure of the name all the time. So, now we're going to pull.
Get it together, lady.
Yeah. Throw tomatoes. We're going to get our crust, we're going to get our crust dough out and we're going to roll that out. So, I'll catch you back in a few minutes. I got to get more flour. So, we've got our dough out of the bowl. I will be breaking this down into 4 sections of dough. For you guys, it will be 2 sections, one for the top crust and one for the bottom. 4 for me because I'm making 2 pies. So you want kind of a bigger section for the bottom because there's more space to cover and you have to go through the dip of the pan you're using. So I break off 4 pieces of dough. The top one, like I said, does not have to be as big as the bottom because it doesn't take that much crust to cover the top. And with the big cast iron, I need a big chunk of dough. So, now that we've got it sectioned off, we're going to roll them out and line our pans. So as you can see, this is the bigger of those two dough balls right there. This one is going to be for my glass dish, and this is the big one for the bottom of the cast iron, and this is its top. So we're gonna do.
I think only bucks have balls, not dough balls. Does don't have balls.
Hey, just run the camera. So we're gonna roll out the bottom for this glass dish that I'm using. This is going to go to our friend, so I'm going to roll this out nice and easy. You're just going to flour your table and your rolling pin. And you want to make sure that you're not just rolling one direction, because it will be a long piece. You want to make sure that you're flipping it around, rolling it around, and make sure that it's somewhat of a semicircle all the way around, so the same size, or what is it called? So you're going to want to roll this out to a thickness you desire. Some people desire for the bottom part to be thicker than the top portion of their pie crust. I like, a thinner one on the bottom. So you're going to roll it around your rolling pin. And don't feel like you need a rolling pin to do this. I have used a mason jar. You can find things that work. So now you're going to get your greased pie pan. I just use vegetable oil and rub it around. And you're going to unroll this over that. And you're going to take your sides and kind of push it down. Now, if you were to just start jabbing it like that, you're going to obviously get little dimples. So you want to make sure that while you're pushing it down, you want to grab from the side and kind of coach it down to where you want it to be, so that you get it all around the creases of your pie pan. So we're going to do this. And you want to I leave it overhanging like this. It helps with folding it over the top layer of your pie crust. So, and now I'm going to grab a more of a bowl-shaped spoon or a ladle to help scoop this out. I'm not making a huge mess. And we're just going to start scooping our pie center, turn it this way, into the bottom layer of our pie. Now, you can add cheese on the bottom as well. I have added cheese to it. We like cheese in this household, so I do add sometimes cheese to the bottom. Since this is going to a friend, I don't know what they, prefer to have or whatever. You don't want to overfill this, so I'm just going to fill it up to there, because it will, as it gets hotter, it will come up through the holes and you'll have spillage into your oven. So now, we have our pie crust filled, and we're going to take a little bit more flour here, and we're going to roll out our top. I am pre-warning you guys, I am not perfect on how I fold my pie crusts together, so please bear with me for that part. And if you're a perfectionist about how you pinch your pies, just fast forward through that part. Alright, so now that we have our pie crust pinched, I'm going to grab the butter wash from out of here. I'm going to take our brush, and I'm going to mix this around one more time, make sure that's spread out. I like to put my butter wash on before I cut the slits, that way I don't have to worry about getting a bunch of butter down in the creases. And you're just going to want to go over the pinch points as well, nice and neatly. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's the nice thing about a butter wash compared to an egg wash, is that you don't have to worry about having too much in one spot and making scrambled eggs on top of your pastry. So now, like I said, I'm going to add a little bit of sea salt over the top. Just a nice light layer. I'm going to take this little knife and I'm going to cut slits into it. So we got one pie in the oven right now cooking away. It's the one in the glass dish. And now I have made up the cast iron one. This one is huge. So it'll be going in here in a minute, and we will come back with the results. So while you're cooking your pot pie, you want to make sure that you're still checking it. I mean, don't leave it unattended. And I noticed that this pot pie is drying out. For whatever reason, it just needs a little bit more butter. So I'm going to pull it out of the oven here. It looks beautiful otherwise. And I'm going to baste it with the same mixture that we put on it before, just to give it that golden appearance that we want, so it doesn't look as dry and like it's going to crack if you touch it. So don't be afraid to pull it out and put more butter on it, or egg wash, whatever you're using. As you can see, that pie has been made up and it'll be ready to hit the oven after this one finishes. So I'm going to finish putting a little bit more on here and then throw it back in, and it is almost ready from what you can see. So now that I've finished putting more butter on it, I'm going to put this one back in the oven. It has been cooking for about 20 minutes. So like I said, it's between 20 and 40. It could get done immediately or it could need a little bit more time. Either way, don't rush your process and just make sure it looks nice and golden on top, and you'll be set for a delicious pie. So it has been 35 minutes and the glass pan pot pie has been done. So we're going to take it out. It looks nice and beautiful. And we're going to put this cast iron one in there. Ooh, that one is heavy. So here's what it looks like. It domed up really nicely.